Hello and welcome. My name is Al Barrows, and this is UFO Disclosure, the podcast that's meant to show an average person's reaction to all the UFO, UAP news from everywhere and anywhere. Today, I'd like to discuss two newspaper articles, one in the Wall Street Journal and the other in the New York Post. Both, in my opinion, amounted to no more than perception management on the UFO issue. By admitting to disinformation while dismissing evidence and discrediting whistleblowers, these two articles' sole purpose and aim was to control the narrative around the UAP UFO issue and maintain the all too prevalent ambiguity that surrounds the subject. Here's a rebuttal to those two articles by the New Paradigm Institute. It's written by Dan Sheehan. And he says, it's becoming increasingly clear that a coordinated narrative is unfolding in the media regarding the Pentagon's historical use of UFO UAP disinformation. The recent article from the New York Post, published June the 8th, 2025, titled, quote, Pentagon secretly planted Area 51 UFO conspiracy theory to hide secret weapons program, end quote, mirrors earlier piece, quote, the Pentagon disinformation that fueled America's UFO mythology, end quote. Both articles, wittingly or unwittingly, appear to be complicit in perpetuating a carefully crafted narrative that serves to gaslight the public and obscure the truth about the unidentified anomalous phenomenon, or UAP. The Wall Street Journal article presents a partial admission of past Pentagon deception, acknowledging that the military fabricated UFO UAP stories to conceal secret weapons programs like the F-117 stealth fighter. However, it dismisses credible evidence such as the 1967 Malmstrom Air Force Base incident where nuclear missiles went offline during a reported UFO UAP encounter. I'm just going to skip down a few paragraphs. The Wall Street Journal and New York Post articles published in quick succession suggest a deliberate strategy to condition public perception ahead of the classified Part 2 of the Department of Defense's all-domain Anomaly Resolution Office historical record, which, by the way, congressional staff have indicated has already been delivered. Okay, this could be a form of perception management akin to the CIA's Cold War era Project Mockingbird, where top-tier newsrooms were infiltrated to launder government narratives. By admitting to past disinformation while dismissing current UFO UAP evidence, such as the statistically significant patterns of UFO UAP activity near nuclear sites outlined in the SCU's 2023 UAP pattern recognition study, these articles aim to discredit whistleblowers, control the historical narrative, and perpetuate ambiguity. And finally, at the end, it says here that the New York Post's regurgitation of the Wall Street Journal's narrative underscores a troubling media complicity in the Pentagon's secrecy. It's not just about past myths, it's about ongoing concealment of the phenomenon that challenges our understanding of reality. And this post is encouraging Congress to act and launch an investigation into the Department of Defense's sustained disinformation campaign. And you guys can take action yourselves and email your elected officials or go to the newparadigminstitute.org/take action. Here's an online article I found on anomalien.com, and it's by Jay Carter. And it's pretty much a rebuttal by the officer in charge of the nuclear site during the Malmstrom incident. And it reads, former U.S. Air Force Captain Robert Salas, a key witness to one of the most significant UFO incidents in military history, has issued a forceful response to the Wall Street Journal's recent article about Pentagon disinformation. If you guys can see, this is a picture of him here. In his rebuttal, Salas dismantles the government's latest attempt to explain away the 1967 Maelstrom missile incident, accusing officials of spreading falsehoods to conceal the truth. The Wall Street Journal's June 6 article cited the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, claiming the 1967 incident where 10 nuclear missiles mysteriously failed during a UFO encounter was actually caused by a secret electromagnetic pulse test. Salas, who was on duty that night, calls this explanation, quote, a fantasy, end quote, and provides multiple reasons why it cannot be true. During a 2-hour presentation to AARO investigators in February of 2023, Salas says they never mentioned any, quote, terrestrial explanation, end quote, for the incident. When he asked if they would verify his account with the Air Force, they admitted the USAF, or the United States Air Force, was not cooperating with their investigation. This lack of basic verification raises serious questions about AARO's claims. The journal's description of a massive 60-foot EMP generator, or electromagnetic pulse generator, near the missile site directly contradicts the experience of personnel stationed there. Salas notes that such a device would have been impossible to hide from security teams. Damn right, 60 foot? Yet no one reported seeing it. More importantly, missile crews were never briefed about EMP testing, an unthinkable oversight during the Cold War when nuclear readiness was paramount. True that. Declassified documents further undermine the Pentagon's story. A secret 1967 telex from Strategic Air Command called the missile failure, quote, cause for grave concern, end quote, and demanded an investigation. Boeing's investigative team, led by Robert Kaminsky, later concluded there was, quote, no technical explanation, end quote, for the shutdowns. Notably, their report never mentioned EMP testing as a possible cause. Multiple eyewitnesses reported seeing a glowing object hovering above the missile silos that night. Security personnel were reportedly terrified by what they saw, a reaction that makes no sense if this was simply an authorized test. Base logs from the time confirmed numerous UFO sightings were reported around Maelstrom that evening. From a scientific standpoint, the EMP explanation fails basic scrutiny. Historical nuclear tests, like Starfish Prime in 1962, demonstrated that electromagnetic pulses cause permanent damage to electronics. Yet Maelstrom's missiles returned to normal operation shortly after the incident. The Department of Energy has confirmed no nuclear tests occurred on the dates in question. Salas' rebuttal presents a clear case. The Pentagon's latest explanation doesn't withstand examination. His account, supported by documentation and multiple witnesses, suggests officials are still attempting to obscure what really happened that night in 1967. The former missile officer is now calling for congressional hearings with sworn testimony from all witnesses and full declassification of documents related to the incident. His challenge to the Wall Street Journal to publish his complete rebuttal puts additional pressure on media outlets to scrutinize the government's changing narratives. The controversy comes at a critical time as AARO prepares to release more findings about historical UFO cases. Salas's detailed refutation raises serious questions about whether the forthcoming report will provide genuine transparency or simply repackage old disinformation. As one of the most credible military witnesses to UFO activity near nuclear facilities, Salas's testimony cannot be easily dismissed. His rebuttal confronts a decades-long pattern of official deception regarding unidentified aerial phenomenon and national security. And as far as I know, to my knowledge, the Wall Street Journal has not to date published Salas's rebuttal. Here's a video that I found on X showing what UFOs would look like over a nuclear power plant. This video is showing UFOs over a Fukushima nuclear power plant.
In March 2011, the world was shaken by a massive earthquake in Japan that caused widespread destruction and devastation. But the earthquake also triggered a mysterious event at a nuclear power plant in Fukushima. After the accident, 10 strange objects appeared in the sky above the damaged reactor and hovered over the site for several hours before disappearing into the night. The UFOs were there for a reason. It's well known that UFOs have a keen interest in our nuclear technology, and the Fukushima incident may have caught their attention. Were they there to monitor the situation, or perhaps to intervene in some way?
Okay, so that was in Fukushima, Japan in the year 2011. It's just a representation of what Salas might have seen during the Maelstrom incident. And it certainly doesn't look like an electromagnetic pulse generator up in the sky there. Legendary UFO journalist George Knapp, along with Jeremy Corbell, was recently interviewed about this cover-up or disinformation campaign by Mr. Cuomo on News Nation. Okay, so George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell are here discussing the UFO cover-up and current effort by the Pentagon to muddy the waters with disinformation.
Corbell, if you care about government transparency when it comes to UAPs, that's all you need to hear and know that this is worth listening to. So let's bring them in right now. George and Jeremy join us. Thank you very much for taking the opportunity, fellas, especially you, George. You're not easy to get. So let me ask you this, George. When you are looking at the state of play right now, do you believe we've made progress? And what's your biggest question going forward?
Well, we have made progress since that New York Times story 2017. Congress has shown it's interested in the topic after being hands-off for more than 50 years. Major media at least dabbled in it for a while, now have pulled back. The academic community has come forward. Some people have stepped forward bravely and said, we want to look into this. So, yeah, there's progress being made. But, you know, the keepers of the secrets, the folks who are manipulated this topic for almost 80 years now, are better at their job, I would dare say, than you and I and Jeremy are at ours. They have a lot of tools at their disposal. We've seen some of it come out in the last couple of days in national media accounts that muddy the waters, that confuse the public. They've admitted what we've all known for a long time, that they've lied to the American public, that they've lied to Congress. Now we know they've lied to their own military personnel, made up stories, propaganda. It's disgraceful. But now a lot of it is out in the open, so I would call that progress.
Jeremy, I was crestfallen when the Trump administration came in and they told us, we're going to tell you what Biden wouldn't tell you. And then they gave us the same answer about what was in the air over the military bases and other places on the East Coast and elsewhere. How do you explain that?
I don't even attempt to explain that. I just know that the true transparency on this topic is going to obviously come through good journalism. And that's what George and I are focused on, is bringing forward whistleblowers like Matthew Brown and the Immaculate Constellation information, as well as just bringing forward, if we're lucky enough, military film footage of UAP. This is what we've been doing. We believe this to be the path forward. I'm not going to rely on anybody else to help us move this ball forward. I just think the public needs to fight for it.
George, when you look at this issue as a function of transparency, you say the people who are the keepers of the secrets, these days they use the word deep state. In these years of researching this, what is your best reckoning of who we're up against and what they're about?
It's a combination of Department of Defense folks, intelligence agencies, defense contractors. I think it's probably a small group of the people that really know what's going on. And even they probably don't know the big picture. You know, Jeremy and I have been pretty far up the food chain over the years, me even longer than him. And I have never met anyone who really knows the true story. I've run into a lot of people whose job it is to confuse the public, to muddy the waters, to slip out propaganda, as we've seen over the past couple of days and over many years. You know, I don't know what the big answers are. Like you, Chris, I'm not expecting to meet aliens. I don't believe in aliens. I was attracted to this story because of the paper trail of documents, memos, reports that were shared within the Department of Defense and CIA and other agencies before the Freedom of Information Act became the law. And in those reports, it shows they were saying, hey, this is real. It's not imaginary. It's not fictitious. It's real. It's not us. It's from somewhere else. We need to figure it out because there are national security issues involved. 1953, the Robertson panel gets together for CIA. They spend 6 hours over 2 days looking at UFO evidence, and they decide UFOs are not a threat to national security, but the reporting of UFOs is a threat. And we need to strip it of its aura of mystery. We need to debunk it. We need to use ridicule. And that's pretty much been the policy of the U.S. government ever since. And it ticks me off. It's what got me hooked on the topic. They're telling the public one thing. They're saying something behind closed doors to themselves that is far different. And it makes me angry.
And Jeremy, this was part of our bond, right? Is that when I first came to News Nation and I started reporting on this, media came after me about it. They'd mock me. They'd say, oh, man, he's doing anything he can to get ratings. And as George just said, I'm not looking to meet little green men. I mean, I'm open to it. The arrogance of thinking that this is the only planet in a universe that is constantly expanding. You know, I think there's an arrogance in that to believe we're the only ones that figured out carbon-based life. But let's put that to the side. They think they don't have to tell us what they know. And to me, it's a metaphor for what we've seen in so much of government in recent years.
It's way more sinister than that. It's not just that they don't think that they need to tell the truth. They're intentionally muddying the waters with misinformation and disinformation. If you looked at the ridiculous and sinister Wall Street Journal report, then we're supposed to believe that we didn't need a Manhattan Project to win the war. We didn't need the Apollo mission to put us into space because this is all some sort of government cover-up. The new conspiracy, Chris, is that UFOs are not real. That's the new conspiracy, the baseless conspiracy.
George, what do we need to know?
Well, one thing we know is they're never going to give this up. I mean, it's pretty clear. These recent reports that have been issued by Arrow and now the repeated media statements by the former Arrow staffers, there's nothing to it. There's no information. There's no proof. It's stuff that we made up. It's disinformation that we spread out there. We created the story about Area 51. We created the story about nukes being disabled. That's all us. All the technology that people have been seeing in the skies around the world on every culture, every continent, throughout human history, that's us. It's preposterous. It's ridiculous. There's no way we could ever accept it. But Arrow has made it clear they're not going to give this up. They're not even giving it up to Congress. I admire the people who've been pushing the ball down the field in Congress, but they've been manipulated on this topic as well. There's always something more pressing for members of Congress, for the public, you know, a job, your mortgage payment, your family, bills for Congress. There's Ukraine, there's Gaza, there's the stuff in LA that's unfolding right now. Always something more pressing than UFOs. So the people who tell these lies get away with it. I'd like to know why the secrecy? I mean, I could see it in 1947. We just come out of World War II. The world's a mess. Do you need to share that with the public and tell them there's another intelligence more advanced than us? Why the secrecy now, though? If the technology is being tested in secret in some hangar somewhere, what do we need to get it done? Can we ever master it? And are the national security implications legit? Because there is a race for this technology. Us, the Russians, the Chinese, maybe the Israelis. How do we ever separate the UFO technology from national security concerns that would allow some president to step up to a microphone and say, we've been lying to you, here's the truth?
What can you add to that, Jay?
I just would have one question. You know, what made you look beyond your orders and not follow your oath? Like, what made you do this? Keep this from the American public. What is so scary to you that you are holding this back from the American public and hurting people's lives? That's what I really want to know. It's more of a human question about the secrecy of UFOs. I'm done with it. The American public's done with it, and I hope we crack this egg as soon as possible.
What do you think the watershed moment will be, George? What do you think has to happen that hasn't yet?
It's got to be a whistleblower who comes forward with a piece of something or some video evidence, something irrefutable, or it has to be them, whoever they are, wherever they're from. I mean, they're the real architects of the secrecy. Wherever they're from, they've been here a long time. They could make themselves known in some irrefutable kind of a demonstration. They haven't done it. We get little glimpses, little bits and pieces, a look here, a look there, but they started the secrecy, and our government is happy to exploit it.
For me, Jay, you know what I think it's going to be? Advantage. One of these two poison parties is going to realize there's something in this issue for them versus the other one, and they'll go all in down that road. That is my suspicion of why it didn't change from Biden to Trump. It didn't kill the Democrats for Trump to come out with whatever that they were going to come out with. The same way that it wouldn't have killed Trump for Biden to expose whatever it is. And these cats are all about advantage, never about advancement of anything but their own aims.
Well, that's what Chris Cuomo, Jeremy Corbell, and George Knapp think about the subject. I went on Reddit to see what the average person is thinking about this disinformation coming out from the Wall Street Journal and the New York Post. On the subreddit RUFO, NextScale3335 says, the Wall Street Journal just published the first of a two-part series claiming the UFO phenomenon is mostly the result of decades of deliberate military disinformation. According to the Wall Street Journal, the government let UFO rumors grow wild as a cover for classified weapons programs, and even high-level officials were misled. The narrative is now going mainstream, and unless it's challenged with something real, it's going to stick. The door is closing. So here's the message to Matthew Brown, Lou Elizondo, Ross Coulthart, Chris Mellon, Corbell, Knapp, David Grush, and anyone else sitting on more than rumors. Stop teasing. Stop dropping breadcrumbs. Enough with the cryptic tweets and cipher games. This isn't a Dan Brown novel. It's potentially the biggest story in the history of humanity. If you know something, say something. Say what it is. Say it clearly and now. The, quote, trust me bro, end quote, era is over. We've heard from the hints, the implications, the careful phrasing, but that's not going to hold up against the weight of a Wall Street Journal takedown. If that article becomes the final word, this entire conversation risks fading into the background, which is exactly what the gatekeepers want. So if you're in this for the right reasons, step up. Be specific, be brave, be done with games, because this might be the last window. We're not asking for drama. We're asking for truth. Amen to that. Sometimes these UFO personalities add to the disinformation by not being clear about what they're telling us. And I guess a lot of us feel the same way. We're tired of all the misinformation, all the breadcrumbs, the hints that never really pan out to anything, and we really just want to get down to the truth about what's really going on. I think the public has a right to know, why are credible sightings and technologies still hidden behind black budget walls? Why are classification systems like the UAP Security Classification Guide being used to silence witnesses and withhold evidence? I think Congress must launch an investigation into these abuses. The rule of law, the Constitution, and public trust depends on it. The era of secrecy must end. Let's tell Congress to investigate this UAP disinformation campaign. My name is Al Barrows. This has been UFO Disclosure. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks.
For more than 75 years, the truth about UFOs, now referred to as UAP, has been kept from the American people and our elected officials. Compelling accounts from former military and government insiders, coupled with credible documentation, now point to a disturbing reality. a systematic effort to disinform both the public and our elected leaders on this profound issue of UFOs. When a government conceals fundamental truths from its own citizens regarding UFOs, the very bedrock of our democratic society begins to crumble.